We've just had a really awesome discussion about the sort of big ideological underpinnings of the future of the internet, whether or not that will be underpinned by distributed ledgers, whether or not the Web3 movement and community will have a role to play in that. We spoke about the need to balance centralization for improved user experience and ease of onboarding with the desire to decentralize and therefore democratize the way that computer systems run in the future. But outside of the legal profession, I don't think our mission should be to persuade everyone to understand the technology. There aren't many people in this room that can explain how TCP/IP works, but you've sent an email this morning.
Firstly, how can we advise in this sort of space unless we understand the technology? And you see examples of that actually in the publication today, that whether, for example, certain sorts of assets are regulated may depend on the technical detail. What's going on? What exactly are they doing? If you don't know, how can you advise properly? So that's point one. Point two is that we have a role to play as lawyers in what future regulation looks like. This is a space where things are moving rapidly. There's a lot of popular interest, there's a lot of public concern. We should be in a really good position to help steer regulation, governance in the right direction. How do we do that if we don't understand what's going on? And third and finally, lawyers, tech lawyers in particular, should be curious. And this is the cutting edge. AI and blockchain is moving ever faster in all sorts of directions. We should want to be on top of it.
As the use of DLT grows, so does the need for lawyers to understand it. So we really hope as well that this guidance will provide a useful stepping stone for not only lawyers actually, but also technologists and academics who are all working in this space. I think it's really fundamental that people understand how these technologies operate, because it will have a huge impact on not only legal services, but financially and property services.
When going into the Web3 DLT space, every large brand should be thinking about what their commercial driver is for doing it in the first place. Are they doing it to enhance their brand? Are they doing it to increase their top line, drive new revenues? Or are they doing it to improve their bottom line, reduce their costs? Often, organizations aren't entirely honest with what their driver is. They all say top line, but actually they consider a very well-received marketing push to be a success, and therefore I would argue it's probably more brand.
These days, if you go in front of the court with, say, an interim injunction on a crypto asset, you don't have to start by explaining to the judge what a blockchain is.
Yeah, so one of the key things as well, it's clear that, whilst there has been a slower adoption of distributed ledger technologies and smart contracts, that actually this space isn't going away at all, and there's going to be a greater integration between distributed ledger technologies and AI. Then there also as well, the thing that will lead to an increased uptake in this technology and more people adopting it is by making it simple. So actually, people don't need to understand necessarily how blockchain technology works, but they need to be able to use it and have a great user interface.
I found it was really insightful to get an understanding of different perspectives of the legal system. So obviously we were really fortunate to have the Master of the Rolls with us today. So that's really looking at the judiciary perspective of how judges are learning more about this technology and really embracing these developments. We then were also really fortunate to have a more commercial perspective of somebody who's working with consumers on the ground, and then looking at the idea of how you're representing clients from a digital perspective and looking at those assets. So I found it really helpful for us to have that rounded input from those different areas of our community, as well as the fact that we were given the opportunity to ask questions, and the panel were great at really embracing the ideas behind those questions. I was really glad that I was fortunate enough to ask the last question and to get their idea about, where is our community going from this idealistic perspective perspective of a decentralised system at the very beginning, moving more now towards a sort of more regulated, centralised intermediary structure, and to really just see where this community is going to be going in the future.
We're also seeing increasingly companies considering the UK as a viable jurisdiction to launch their product in. The changes to the law and the regulation that are probably going to come down the track in the next 12 to 18 months are going to mean that a lot of them are no longer going to get the value they perhaps once did from their very complex, quite expensive offshore structures. And so more are going to incorporate here, set up here, pay tax here, employ people here, which I think is a great thing for the UK economy.